I do find that the feedback we get from some employers is females in the trades are highly organised and are thinking 2, 3, 4 steps in front. And they're reliable.
Good at multitasking too.
Absolutely. And they become the mothers on the job. So the feedback that we get from employers who do employ the females is fabulous. We need to use more of those as ambassadors to go out to the schools and communicate that message.
Welcome to Building Perspective, the Master Builders SA podcast. I'm your host, Will Frogley. Join me as I speak with some characters in the building and construction industry.
Master Builders Insurance Brokers is where the building and construction industry goes for specialist advice. We know the right insurance cover is essential to the success of builders of all sizes. And we're here to help you understand, select and manage the right cover for your business. How do you know you've got the right cover? You trust the industry specialists.
The skill shortage, we're all hearing about it on a daily basis, and I think it's probably the number one challenge we've got in the industry at the moment. And someone who has got a really big role to play in helping us fix that skill shortage is none other than Holly Willcox, the new Chief Executive Officer of the Construction Industry Training Board. Welcome, Holly.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. So probably the best way to start is, can you tell people who are watching what exactly is the Construction Industry Training Board and what does it do?
Construction Industry Training Board exists for the purpose or for the benefit of the employee and the industry. It's an industry-led organisation, and what we do, we collect a levy and we use that levy to feed back into the industry for training and education needs.
What are some examples of some of the programs that the CITB delivers?
Traditionally, since CITB have been around, we've always had a focus on apprenticeships and supporting employers in that apprenticeship journey, as well as the apprentice themselves in how they are fulfilling that need around the trade school. We've always helped the construction workers in upskilling and cross-skilling as well across different industries, being the commercial sector, civil sector and housing sector, or the residential sector. That fund in itself is a really interesting one because you don't necessarily need to come in as an apprentice to go in as a construction worker. You can enter our industry directly as a construction worker. We also support the industry through our Doorways to Construction program, and that's looking at Year 11 and 12 students, and more recently this year we now support Years 7, 8, 9 and 10, and the Doorways to Construction program as it's always existed in Years 11 and 12.
And that's really important, isn't it? Getting to the kids at a young age, so construction's on their radar right from that Year 7 kind of year level?
Absolutely. It's something that we have talked about for a number of years, and more recently the Department for Education rolling out their VET for School Students policy this year, which looks at how VET is embedded in school curriculum. Was a massive opportunity for Construction Industry Training Board to be a part of that. And we're really such a unique organisation. There's no other industry or pathway option in a school that has a CITB to be instrumental in how industry is immersed in school and providing those trade pathways and those trade days. It's opening up doors, hence the Doorways to Construction name, for individuals in schools to learn about building and construction and the diverse opportunities that's available in a career path in our industry. A lot of the students would say, if you ask them about going into a trade, they'd say carpentry, electrical, plumbing, even a brickie. But we know that there's just a massive amount of roles available to them in scaffolding, concreting, wall and ceiling lining, etc. And a lot of the kids don't have that opportunity to explore those pathways. So CITB plays a really unique role in supporting government in fulfilling that VET for School Students policy. And it's coming at a time where we desperately need a skilled workforce, and that is the core at CITB of what we do, is to make sure that our industry has a highly skilled workforce, and that is looking in from the apprenticeships but also right through to even retirement. Outside of the schools, we do support people who are looking at maybe getting out of the industry. So rather than losing them to retirement, we're trying to retain those people and upskill them as a trainer, a qualified trainer, so they can help with the next generation of school kids coming through. I know there's a workforce issue, but there's also an issue of shortage of trainers as well. So the more that we engage and bring on apprentices, there's a bigger demand for more trainers. So that's an issue that CITB are trying to solve at the moment, and that's through our Tradie to Trainer program. And the more that we upskill, the more the demand is there to bring on these skilled trainers as well. So that's something that we've never really done as part of our core business, which is either the school students, the apprentices and the construction workers. We now are sort of looking at other opportunities of outside the workforce need for skilled workers. Who's going to train them? So it's important that CITB play a role there too in how we're supporting RTOs and GTOs in training the next generation.
Absolutely. It's so important that we are planning decades in advance, because one of the big problems we're seeing at the moment is we're paying the toll, I guess, of not getting enough young people through the system and developed as apprentices for quite a few years, and now we're really busy. We don't have nearly enough people. So for me, the role of the CITB is really important. You know, what Master Builders really wants to see is, you know, a future industry where there's good quality workmanship, where projects are delivered for a reasonable price, on time and on budget, and without defects. So we've got to be building up our skilled labour capacity, don't we? It's absolutely vital.
Yeah. I think what you'll see as well, Will, is that under the Vet for School Students policy, by industry engaging these kids in years, particularly years 9 and 10, where students are beginning to form an understanding of career options and pathways in schools, and school-based apprenticeships as being a viable option for them to also achieve SACE, the children will be able to make more informed choices at that school stage. So what you'll see is that kids who choose a flexible industry pathway in the building construction industry will go into that more informed rather than choosing it as a secondary option because there was no other option at the time. So what we'll see is there may be less terminations of contracts of training in that first sort of 3 to 6 months of the training contract. And I think we're going to see more kids fulfil their role as an apprentice in that first year. And I think we'll see the skill level raise because the kids will have an opportunity to do a lot more of these hands-on activities in years 10, 11 and 12.
I should probably declare at this point that I'm actually a board member of the CITB, so people probably wouldn't know that who are watching this, but I am. But some people might be interested to know, how much money does the CITB pay out to support training, perhaps last year? And I guess what's the breakdown? Do you know how much money goes towards, residential or commercial or civil?
Currently, when we've looked at the past 12 months, we can see that we've brought in levy revenue nearly 27 million. This annual training plan will see about 23 million invested back into the industry through our Doorways to Construction program, our apprentice support, as well as our construction worker program, which is all your short courses. I will just say, actually, that this is a good reminder to industry, actually, that a lot of people lose sight of or forget about what the purpose of CITB is. And that short course fund, we actually provide construction workers with up to $3,000 worth of training subsidies every 12 months. So for every 12 months, a construction worker can access those subsidies to upskill in any of the sectors or cross-skill. And we find that not everyone will use all of that 3,000, but there are a few that do, which is fabulous news because it means that they're upskilling, and most of our courses are around licensing, regulation and safety. But we do provide a lot of opportunities for people to cross-sector. And what I mean by that is you might be a civil worker who works on traffic management and always aspired to work on residential building sites. Perfect. Why don't you come over into the landscape construction space, for example, and start learning some more carpentry techniques and so on. That's the purpose of the fund, and it's really lovely to see how people can cross over those sectors. So rather than losing them from our industry, we use them across those different sectors.
We're well aware that there's a massive shortage of trades in the industry. And for us, construction's a great, well-paid career. And for a lot of people, it's a real pathway from perhaps a lower socioeconomic background into that well-paying career. But the hardest part for a young person can often be getting their foot in the door. And one thing Master Builders found is that not having a driver's license was a big barrier for a lot of young people, particularly from those perhaps low socioeconomic areas to get into the industry. At Master Builders, we've had to turn away hundreds of kids because they don't have a driver's license. So we obviously did some advocacy work about whether there could be some assistance to help kids get their driver's license and get going on their construction apprenticeship. Can you tell us, we're really pleased that CITB is in that space now. Can you tell us, Holly, a bit about that career-driven program, as it's called at the CITB?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fantastic initiative, and I share what you're saying. It is a significant barrier to employment. Often students will come out of a doorways program with a whole Cert 2 qualification, or they may have had not a whole Cert 2, but certainly had experience working on a building site and want to take on the opportunity of an apprenticeship and being told no, purely because you don't have a driver's license. And we did a little bit of research into the reasons why, what prevents a student from getting their license. Some of it is an age barrier. Also, it is due to the number of hours that they have to, that's 75 hours that they have to get. The other issue is that it's not always that mum and dad even have a car or there's not an available parent with a licence in the home to teach them. So it was an opportunity for CITB to play a role there. It was a significant investment last year, and we decided to carry that into this year because there's a genuine need for it in the industry. If that's the barrier to us increasing our workforce, well, it needs to be addressed. So it was only open to potential apprentices who had an opportunity to get an apprenticeship opportunity with a builder or whoever it might be, and we were going to fund up to 10 lessons. We changed that early this year to say that anyone in a flexible industry pathway program, and so in years 11 and 12, who were doing the building and construction flexible industry pathway, we were going to offer them 3 driving lessons. Then if they go on to get an offer of employment, they get an additional 7. The increase that we've had is around about 50% in the last 3 months of potential apprentices taking up that opportunity.
There you go.
Yeah. The problem that we have found now is the need is there and that the students want to do it. We now have a different problem. We have a problem where there's a shortage of skilled instructors, and we just can't keep up with the demand for those instructors. So sometimes kids are left waiting 3 months to try and get their first lesson. Yeah,
I guess that's, again, an indication that it's not just construction that's really struggling with that skill shortage. Is there anything anything that CITB can do to increase that pool of driving instructors?
It's certainly something that we will be addressing as a board. In November, we will be sitting down to look at some strategic direction and goals that we want to set. That is one of the topics that we will be looking at in how we can address that issue. We will be going to Department for Transport to have a meeting to talk about some ways to sort of break down those barriers, because the cost to becoming an instructor is quite a lot, particularly if you're doing the competency-based system as opposed to the VORT. We've certainly got scope to improve there, absolutely.
For me, it's super important because, like I said, it's a chance for a person to get their foot in the door. But if they can't financially afford to get their driver's license, then by the time they actually can get it, they might be more expensive to employ. And a lot of employers would love to have a mature-aged apprentice, but choose not to have them because they cost more. Is CITB doing anything to assist employers to employ mature-aged apprentices?
Yes, and there's going to be more of a push for that again in November. We'll be looking at our existing model of mature age supplement and how we support employers in taking on those mature age students. What we do know is that the completion rates for those apprentices is much higher, and we would like to engage more with employers on how we can meet their needs better. We do know there is a cost issue, and by providing an additional incentive on top of the incentives that CITB already offer for the apprentice training support does fulfil that need, but we are reviewing how much we fund coming up.
Master Builders GTO actually has a very high percentage of mature age apprentices compared with the industry norm. We're up at more than 20% now, and maybe that is flowing through to that completion rate, because we do have a completion rate in the high 90% now, which is, I don't know if they're related or overall the program's just working well, but they do seem to be a bit more focused, mature age apprentices, more often than not, don't they?
Yeah, they do, but GTOs in general, we find, so group training organisations are able to offer additional services that direct indentured can't. So what I mean by that is around the mentoring, really good inductions, having field officers that come out and do check-ins, or having that support there. So if an apprentice feels that they're wanting to have a chat with someone, there is that access where they can call up their field officer. We do see that that is essential to apprentices completing or getting through that first 6 months of their training contract. That's often where they find the biggest struggle in trying to, that transition from school into an apprenticeship is really hard for some people. Other people it's not. But we find that the services and how GTOs work with their apprentices is what contributes to their success in getting through. We're doing a body of research at the moment that's going to be looking or trying to unpack a number of reasons why apprentices terminate their contracts within that first 6 months, but also it's really important to understand what's motivating that apprentice to keep going past the 3rd month, the 6th month, the 8th month. We do know it is a bit of a transition issue, but again, this is where the Vet for School Students policy will come in, because past few years, students go into a trade ill-informed or under-informed. That Vet for School Students policy will make them more informed. So they'll make choices about which trade or which role they go into. So you will see a reduction in those termination rates. But we do want to increase the number of mature age students in our industry and support them. And I don't think that the industry communicate it enough to say that that option is actually open to them. I know that we've had a number of phone calls from mature age workers who work in a completely different sector, let's say community services or retail, who would like to get into our industry but have said, I'm over 21, what do I do? How can I get in this space? I've been knocked back. So they aren't aware. So we have got a body of work to do in how we reach some of these individuals, and that will help solve our workforce, because the focus can't always be on the next generation coming through from school. We have to look at, right now, there's people in other industries who are underemployed. Maybe they're interested in coming over. It is very much an awareness issue too, because people don't know the diverse career pathways and rewarding pathways that the industry actually offers them. Yeah.
You touched on some really good points there. The completion rate for construction trades is actually pretty low. So the GTOs do tend to have a much higher completion rate. And again, you mentioned the field officers. They kind of are those big brothers, or I guess big sisters, you could say, that really the apprentices really look up to, and they're at arm's length, I guess, from the work of their daily work, but they're there kind of looking after them. And I think that's a really good model that encourages them, helps them through. Another issue is cohorts we should be attracting. And everyone talks about this huge skill shortage we've got in construction, and particularly the trades, but the female participation in trades is abysmal, isn't it? It's only a couple of percent in South Australia. So we're really only tapping into half our potential workforce. What do you think needs to be done to increase more, particularly young girls, but really females of any age, to become a tradie?
Again, it comes back to this awareness that often students in general don't know the diversity of the roles available, particularly females, or some teachers and even parents are the barrier to those females exploring those options. What we saw last year is we started to fund a lot of our training providers going into some schools to run female-only trades. And let's say it was the wet trade. So females had an opportunity across 3 days it was non-accredited training, get in and just try it. The girls loved it, absolutely loved it. And particularly in trades like tiling, where, again, we're struggling to find a skilled workforce to fill that role. Some of the girls would just said, this is fantastic. I've never had this opportunity. I saw it advertised at the school, wanted to go for it. When we asked some of them, well, had you considered this before? The answers were, didn't know it existed, didn't know it was available, didn't know it was an option. I thought it was just something for the boys. So there's an element of that. And I think CITB would like to work closely with a lot of the vet coordinators in the schools in how we communicate the roles that are available in our industry, because it's not just for boys and it's just not for tough guys either. There's so many roles available to females, and it's a focus that we would like to contribute more of board's attention to across the next 12 months.
Those sorts of programs are excellent. I know there's a lot of providers delivering them at the moment, but yeah, we definitely get the feedback from girls that if there's a lot of boys there and the only girl, they're hesitant to try. But if they're surrounded by other girls, they're much more inclined to give it a go. So yeah. I think certainly what we'd like them to know is that there's a lot of guys who've got absolutely no idea when they start their apprenticeship either. So they're definitely not alone, and they're certainly not like that just because they're a girl.
I do find that the feedback we get from some employers is females in the trades are highly organised and are thinking 2, 3, 4 steps in front. And they're reliable. And
good at multitasking too.
Absolutely. And they become the mothers on the job. So the feedback that we get from employers who do employ the females is fabulous. We need to use more of those as ambassadors to go out to the schools and communicate that message and give the girls an opportunity to try it, give it a go and see. You never know, you might really like it.
And Master Builders is definitely, we know that just getting people in the front door and starting an apprenticeship's only a part of the game. We want them not only completing their trade, but then actually staying in the industry for a long time. And some of the things that are really, holding a lot of women back or getting them to leave the industry are things like just basic things like there not being proper toilets for females on sites and stuff like that. And that's something Esther van der Linden, who's our policy director, is actively working on with this Nowhere to Go campaign. It's one thing to attract them at the start, but we've got to make them feel included, and have basic facilities to be able to keep working in the industry for years ahead, don't we? Yeah,
absolutely. And that's a no-brainer, to be honest. It's something that we are also looking at addressing as well in conjunction. I've had a chat with Esther about that too. It is an issue, and it's how do we support employers, particularly the smaller operators, to provide those facilities and not see it as a burden to have to go that extra length and bear the cost of providing toilets on site, etc. So there's some barriers to that, but I think we can play a role again in how we break down some of those.
So going back, I guess, to you personally and your new role as CEO, congratulations, by the way. But you were with CITB for quite a while before being promoted, weren't you?
Yeah, I've been with CITB for just over 4 years. I came into CITB as a quality manager. My focus was really on improving the quality outcomes of training, particularly in the short courses. So I'd work very closely with our training providers and looking at, even though you may be delivering an accredited training program and you have got the ASQA regulator's tick of approval to do so, it doesn't necessarily mean or guarantee that the students will get a quality outcome from that. So my focus was to embed a quality assurance framework that our training providers and our group training providers can work to improve that quality. So at CITB, we don't endorse every training provider. At the moment, we work with about 42 of those training providers, and we refer to them as our endorsed quality training providers. So they're the ones that we're happy to say they work towards our quality assurance framework and they meet that. So from that role, I then progressed into a Director of Workforce Skills and Training. Now that role then I started to manage the Apprentice Training Support Fund, as well as the Doorways to Construction. I'd probably been in that role for just over a year when the opportunity came up to take on the CEO role. I was in the acting role for about 6 months before then taking it on full time.
It's a great result. You obviously know the organisation intimately and you've got a lot of respect out in the industry. So I think your appointment was definitely very well received. I guess you've touched on a few things already, but where would you really like to take CITB under your leadership?
My core focus, to be honest with you, is bringing CITB back to a point where we provide that highly skilled workforce. And that's across all of our key signature programs. So we've got what we call 3 programs, being Doorways to Construction, the Apprenticeship Training Support, and the short courses. That's our primary focus. We need to spend a lot of energy on improving that, working with industry and stakeholders to make sure that each of those buckets of money or those funds and those programs actually meet their needs. We work very closely with industry to listen to future workforce needs. For example, hydrogen. What's coming up there? What roles don't we know about yet? And what are our training organisations going to need to prep for? How can we support that? We do provide support to training organisations who are seeking development costs in relation to putting on new short courses as well.
Excellent. So I guess if there's anyone who wants to know a bit more about CITB, where's the place they could go to find out?
They can go straight to our website. It's at citb.org.au, or you can call the customer service team and they can direct you to the appropriate section on our website. We have just released the My CITB app as well. That app is going to continue to develop. It's really aimed at doorways to construction students and in their enrolment phase, but we are rolling it out to be able to benefit the construction workers. They can update their CITB membership or they can apply for a new one. But we'll also be able to communicate with them through that CITB app any new legislation or changes in acts and regulations that they may need to go off and do some additional training.
Well, Holly, you're in a very important space. Like I said, I think the lack of skills in our industry is probably the number one issue we're facing at the moment. So you're in a very important space. You've got a very important role for the industry to play going forward, and we look forward to seeing you roll out some of those more programs and continue to get stronger and stronger. And thanks very much for coming in today and having a chat.
Thanks for having me, Will.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on Building Perspective. For more information on Master Builders or our guests, please visit our website at mbasa.com.au.